Morning to all my dear students, and you all are welcome in my social science class of class 8th history. And now today we are going to deal with chapter number 3, and the title of the chapter is ruling to countryside. So what is the meaning of this ruling to countryside? Countryside means now we are going to see in this chapter number 3 what was the condition of the village area, rural areas during British rule, during British colonial period. Okay, so let me give you the basic introduction of this chapter, students. Let us have a look at the main points of the chapter. So first of all, we are going to look at how did the company become the Diwan. We will also understand what is the meaning of Diwan. That already we have covered up in chapter number 2. Then why there was a great need to improve agriculture and what were the problems were faced by our Indian peasants and the farmers. Also zamindars also. What were the three systems introduced by the British government for collecting the revenue from the Indian peasants and farmers, and what were the crops which were forced by the British government to grow in India, which can bring a lot of commercial economic profit, and it can lead to commercialization in Europe, and why there was a need to grow cash crops, okay, which can earn a lot of profit to the Britishers in India. And does the blue color have any history? So these topics we are going to cover up. Along with that, we are also going to cover up British turns to India. Why? For what reasons British have turned to India? How was indigo cultivated? We will also see what is indigo and how it was cultivated. And what were the two systems of growing the indigo? Okay, they were niche cultivation, riot cultivation. So this also will study in detail. What were those systems about? And what do you understand with the Blue Rebellion, and what had happened after this rebellion also, conclusion. And in the end of the chapter we will see the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi in the year 1917, and when he saw the scenario of India under the British rule, which movement he started and where. So what was Champaran movement was about. This all we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, and in this chapter also we are going to study the fundamental changes in the revenue administration during the British rule. Okay, revenues mean the taxes, the different taxes collected by the Britishers, and we will also understand the different 3 revenue settlements introduced by the Britishers. Okay, we will also understand the causes, features, outcomes of peasants revolts in India. That already have mentioned you in one of my points. Indigo revolt in Bengal, which took place in the year 1859 to 1860. So to begin with, students, this is the first page of your book. Okay, as you can see here, and in this picture also you can see here. Here you can see the date. Okay, and here you can see a painting is shown here, in which in this painting you can see the Mughal Emperor Shah Alamgir II is there, and this is the incident which had taken place on 12th August 1765. Okay, here you can see Shah Alamgir, he was a Mughal emperor of Delhi. Okay, he was ruling from Delhi in all over India during the British rule. And what he is doing in this incident in painting, who is standing here nearby him, we can see here, Robert Clive is standing nearby him, and he is appointing Mughal Emperor Shah Alamgir II. He had appointed East India Company as the Diwan of Bengal. So now Britishers, they are going to rule on farmers in the countryside, because now they have become the Diwan of Bengal. So what do you understand by Diwani rights? So now the Britishers occupied Diwani, okay, after the war has happened. And these wars were led due to Robert Clive only. In the chapter number 2 we have read that Robert Clive from Madras, he had sent so many naval fleets. Okay, so many ships he has sent, army he has sent through the water route to win over Plassey, that is the Nawab Sirajullah. So after the 2 wars had taken place, Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar, in the year 1764, just after the Battle of Buxar in the year 1765, now Britishers, they have been appointed as the Diwan of Bengal. Okay, Diwani means now they are going to deal with the, here you can see, now the Britishers, they are going to deal with the financial matters of India, Indian farmers. Okay, they are going to collect the rent also, taxes also, revenues from the plot. Okay, So, and they will collect the revenue from the peasants on their crops production. So this way what has happened now, complete financial matters and financial rights have come under the custody of the Britishers. Before that, what was the scenario, students? What was the scenario? We can see here, all the money, gold, coins, cash was coming from Britain. Why? For the maintenance. Here you can see, for the maintenance of, for meeting the different expenses of the company. And what were those different expenses? They were maintenance of the force, army troops, for maintaining the army, for the purpose of the trade. But now what happened? What is the current scenario now? This was a scenario which had taken place when the Britishers, they have come to India only as traders. Okay, so they used to purchase the goods from India and they used to import gold and silver to India. Here you can see, this is a scene, this is a painting. Here we can see Shah Alamgir II is appointing East India Company Robert Clive as the Diwan of Bengal. Okay. He is Robert Clive, okay, who has sent the army from Madras. Okay. Yeah. So Battle of Plassey, Britishers had won, and Battle of Plassey was a turning point of British colonial period. Okay. Now see, let us continue with the topic, students. So now what had happened? Once the Britishers occupied the rights on Diwani of Bengal, now all the wealth coming from Britain had finally stopped now. Okay. And now what happened? One more thing is there. Now Britishers, when they became the Diwan, they also took care that now they should take the local people of the countryside, that is peasants, zamindars, the local authority, those were zamindars, salukdars. So they just wanted to take those people in their favor. So that these people, they are the local authorities, zamindars, salukdars, they were the local authorities. So if Britishers will win the favor of these people, so automatically the peasants will also obey the Britishers. So this was a planning or strategy of the Britishers. Okay. Now, revenue for the company. So children, what happened? Once the Britishers have occupied the rights on Diwani of Bengal, before that all the wealth was coming from Britain only. Now it has finally stopped. Okay, the wealth which was coming from the Britain, and when the Britishers they have become the Diwani of Bengal, now all the wealth which was coming from Britain, it had finally stopped now. Now no financial aid or help was coming from Britain. Okay, and now there was no role of British economy in India now, because now what happened? Company has become the chief financial administrator of the territory. So they have organized the revenue sources and they started rolling over the land in countryside. And now they are not looking to the Britain for any more money. So now Britishers have occupied Diwani and they are collecting a large amount of money through the revenue system, that is tax collection system. So a new tax collection system was developed. So as a result of it, what happened? It made sure that all revenue assessment which were collected, they were collected by the Britishers. And as a result of it, what happened? The state of Bengal, it went into deep crisis. Economy declined. Huge financial loss Bengal had to suffer. There was lack of basic goods and services. In a period of 5 years only, the situation was completely changed when Britishers, they became the Diwan of Bengal. Okay, because now they have stopped giving the taxes to the Nawabs of Bengal. So that's why economy was declining, and they were purchasing the raw materials from our artisans, craftsmen, weavers of Bengal at a very lower prices. They were forcing all these people to sell their raw materials at a very low prices, so that now in 18th century, which we are going to read in part 2, students, chapter 6, smelter weavers, that when in 18th century the industrial revolution will start. So there they will be requiring the raw materials for the production. Okay, so now over a period of time, what happened? The Britishers, they have increased the revenue and they were buying cheap cotton and silk from the artisans of Bengal. So this was the major reason why the economy of Bengal was declined. Okay. Here you can see, students, I'll just show you some figure also. See the scenario of Bengal. So this way, students, there was a double system of government of Britishers. So what they were doing? They started increasing the revenue also, and also they started purchasing the fine quality of cotton and silk at a very cheaper rates along with the revenue. And they aim to maximize the revenue, which directly led to the Bengal famine in the year 1770. Here you can see the condition. So in Bengal famine, this was a terrible famine take place in the year 1770 in Bengal, in which what had happened, 1/3 of the population of Bengal perished, okay, wiped out. And the agriculture, that is why the agriculture was left abandoned by many farmers in many parts of Bengal. And now the English East India Company, the Britishers, they started working in a systematic approach to collect the land revenue. So that what was their ultimate aim, final aim, that they wanted to collect the maximum amount of the revenue. They had to do nothing with the condition of the poor farmers, with the poor artisans, with the poor weavers. Okay. So this was a scenario happening in the year 1770. And now finally the English East India Company, they introduced the main types of land revenue system in India. Okay. And before that, now we will see who is he. Yes. So now we have seen that Bengal economy went into deep crisis. Artisans, they were deserting, leaving the Bengal. Peasants and the farmers were not able to pay the dues, taxes, and there was a huge, deep economic crisis was prevailing in Bengal. Artisans, they were forced to sell their goods to the company at the low prices. So that is why they were suffered a lot. They had suffered a lot. And what was the condition of the peasants? They were not able to pay the dues. Artisans' production declined. Agriculture cultivation was declined. And this all show the sign of collapse. And now Britishers, they were trying to maintain revenue most of from Bengal then also. So then ultimately already we have seen in 1770 there was a terrible famine in Bengal which had killed 10 million of people and 1/3 of its population had perished. So now there was a need to improve the conditions of agriculture because ultimately now Britishers, they have come to India for the profit only. So now they are going to introduce some of the ways, some of the different techniques by which the agriculture can be improved so that they can collect the revenue. Okay. So before that, students, we come to know about the revenue system. Let us see what were the three different settlements. What were the different three ways of collecting the land revenue? So there were East India Company introduced the three main types of land revenue settlements in India. The permanent settlement, which had covered up Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and the Banaras division of UP. Okay. So 19% of the British territories were collecting the revenues from here. Ryotwari system covering Bombay and Madras. 50% of the company's territories were collecting the revenues from here, and the Mehalwari system accounted for 30% of the company's territories covering United Provinces, that is large part of modern Uttar Pradesh and Punjab and also the central part of India. So this way the three system of, we can see here, three system of land revenue settlement were introduced by the Britishers. Before that, we should understand the hierarchy. Okay, in the villages, who were the members, which people used to live in India. So let us understand briefly the hierarchy of our villages, countryside, and the condition of agriculture. So here the villages were known as ryots. Senior members were known as village headmen, and zamindars were also present. So there were three types of settlement. Permanent settlement, which talks about the zamindar. Here we can see permanent settlement. It was introduced in the year 1793. It was introduced by the Charles Cornwallis, and it talks mainly about zamindar. Here the zamindar played a very important role in the first settlement, the permanent settlement of revenue collection. Second was Mehalwari system. It focused on village headmen, and it was started in North India. It became very popular in North India. Then what about South India? There was no system of revenue collection. No, it was there. So Ryotwari system focused about the ryots on the cultivators, that is in South India. So this was a hierarchy in the rural area or the countryside, and above them, who was a supreme power? British power was a supreme power above all of them. They tried to impose power for collection of the revenues, because what was the ultimate aim of the Britishers? To collect revenue as much as possible. So now we are going to see, first of all, students, what is permanent settlement about? So permanent settlement was introduced by so it was introduced by Charles Cornwallis in the year 1793, permanent settlement. And this system is mainly about zamindari system. Rajas and talukdars, they were recognized as zamindars. Okay. So zamindars, they became the whole and soul, very powerful. And basically zamindars were responsible for collecting the revenues and the rent from the peasants from their land, from various villages. So here the zamindar had played a very important role, and they had to pay the revenues to the Britishers. Means they were collecting from the villages. Zamindars were collecting the rent and the revenues and the dues from the villages, and they were paying to the British company. Now the most important thing was that the amount which was to be collected was fixed permanently. That is why it was known as permanent settlement system, and there was no change was made. Okay, no change was about to be made in future also, according to the written agreement contract of the settlement. And this amount was very high initially in the beginning. So the farmers and the cultivators had to suffer a lot. They face a huge problem because of so many reasons. Later on, what happened? When the situations improved and agriculture also flourished, then what happened? We will see that Britishers also, they have done some efforts to improve the agricultural conditions of India. They improved the irrigation facilities, and they also worked on the crops, on the cash crops, which improved the production efficiently in agriculture. So when the situation improved, agriculture flourished, British felt that now they are charging very less amount of revenue. Okay. So now they wanted to increase the amount. But was there any scope? No, there was not any scope, because contract has been signed for the fixed amount. Okay. So there was still the Britishers, they were getting the regular income for the company. So now they were encouraging the zamindars to invest in land, to pay more attention in the land, in the quality of land, so that the production can be increased. Now let us see the problems. What were the problems? Okay, so it was having so many problems, this settlement system. Okay, as Britishers have given the instructions to the zamindars, they have to put some efforts in investing in land improvement. And those who fail to pay the taxes, those zamindars, they used to lose their zamindari, and their land was sold in the auction to the company. Okay, so this was the real condition of zamindar. When they were not able to collect the revenues, then what was happened? The zamindars, they used to lose their power on zamindari. Okay. Then what happened? Now in the first decade of 19th century, the price of market also increased, as we can see here. Now we see the condition of the market. Okay, here you can see he is a Governor General of India before 1857, Lord Cornwallis. He has only introduced the permanent settlement system. Okay, now let us see what was happening. In the first decade of 19th century, what was the situation? The price of market increased, cultivation also expanded. Okay, so cultivation was expanded, so production was increased, large quantity of crops were produced, but company was not getting any profit. Okay, so the company felt that ki now they are at a loss because they have fixed the rent, they have fixed the revenue. But now they can charge, now they decide to charge more money. Now what was the condition? Now the villagers, we will see that now villagers will be very unhappy, angry with the Britishers, because now Britishers are going to increase the rent. So villagers opposed the system and they founded this system very oppressive, okay, very torturous, very harmful, causing a lot of loss in economy, because now they had to pay a higher rent. Okay, so this was a scenario, because zamindar also did not pay and they rolled honestly. They were not going continuously in the farms. Okay, they did not do any efforts also. So that's why company rent was very high. That's why the farmers were unable to pay the revenues to the Britishers, and they also fell in the trap of money lenders. Okay, and this money lender trap was unending. So this is what happened now, children. A new system was coming in it, and it was developed and devised by Thomas Munro in the year 1822, and this system was devised by Holt Mackenzie. And in this system he has said that fixed revenue system was incorrect system, that is a previous system was failed, it had to be proved failed, because here those people, they had fixed the revenue. So what he did now, they brought some changes in the second system. So the second system we are talking about is what system? It is Mahalwari system. Okay, so it is Mahalwari system. So here he introduced the system of Mahal under the Mahalwari system, and Mahal means village, as you can see here. Mahals means village, and each village has a village headman. So here who is going to play the important role? Village headman. In permanent settlement, who was playing the important role? Zamindars. So what was the responsibility of the village headman? Collection of taxes, collection of revenue, collection of rent from the land of from the peasants' land. So under the system, now what happened? Zamindar were not playing any role. They were out of the story. So village headmen were very important. So now their responsibility was to collect the taxes from the peasants. And there was no fixed amount to be charged. And it was revised, increased periodically. Sometimes monthly also, sometimes after 6 months also. It was revised. It was decrease also, increase also. It means we can say there was a fluctuation, that is rise and fall or increase and decrease in the revenue. How? Why it was done like that? It was not fixed permanently, according to situation of the farmers and their crop production, and also we can see the natural conditions of the land or the nature. Okay, the revenue was to be collected. For example, if there was a condition of drought or famine in a year, and if the crops used to fail, then amount of revenue was decreased, and if the crops flourished, then amount was increased. So this way there was a fluctuation, or we can say there was a increase or decrease in the amount of revenue, and this system became very popular in North India. Now what was the situation like in South India? Now let us move in South India, dear students. Now in South India we will see here the villagers were working at their own pace. According to them only, according to their situation only, they were struggling. So the villagers were known as ryots. Rayat also we can say. So this system is based on the rayot or ryots. And who are the ryots? The villagers. So here who is going to play the main role? Villagers. In the second system, village headmen. First system, zamindars. So in South India, the villagers are playing the very important role in the system known as Ryotwari system. So Ryotwari system was introduced in South India. Okay. This system removed the concept of zamindar. This system removed the concept of village headman. And now who is going to play the main role? Ryots, that is villagers. And basically these ryots were the in charge and they were paying the revenue directly to the Britishers. Okay. So this way we can see, students, that the Britishers, they acted as the parental figure. Britishers, they were just became the guardian or the caretaker of the villagers. So Britishers acted as a parental figure for the villagers, and this system tried by Captain Alexander Reed. Who tried? Captain Alexander Reed in areas of Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan, that is which area? Mysore area, which is presently in Karnataka. And later this system was developed by Thomas Munro. Here you can see the difference between the permanent Mehalwari systems, students. This is very, very important. All the points already have explained you. Now this is between Mehalwari and permanent settlement system. This also I have explained you, students. So here Thomas Munro later developed the system, that is Ryotwari system. So the differences which I have shown you, they are very, very important. Okay, so in South India there was no traditional zamindars were there. So that is why Thomas Munro, he directly talked to the cultivators, to the ryots, those who used to till the land for generations. Okay, and very carefully the survey was done. Okay, now here we have read already in the class 7th also, students. There were 2 steps of collecting the revenues, which were introduced by in Mansabdari system by Akbar also. First of all, land was assessed. Land was carefully assessed. Then the quality of the land, and then cultivation was also assessed. Then very carefully seeing the crop production of the farmers. Then very carefully the revenue was used to be decided by the financial minister in Mansabdari system. The same 2 steps are followed here also. So assessment of the land and then collection of the revenue depending upon the crops production. Okay. So now this way, students, we have seen that the 3 system of revenue collection were introduced by the Britishers, but still all was not well. The condition was not well because now the demand and the desire and the greed of the Britishers were increasing day by day, year by year, and they just wanted to they were just urging and forcing the peasants, farmers, zamindars to give more and more revenue. And what was the condition of the poor peasants? They were unable to pay the revenue, taxes. So that is why many ryots, many villagers, many peasants, farmers, they had left the countryside. They have stopped doing the cultivation, agriculture. And this way many villagers, they have become deserted. A very lonely place where no one was doing the cultivation. So that is why now, what was the scenario of the cropping? Slowly the Britishers, they have understood very well that this countryside is not only good for generation of revenue, okay, but they can also grow those crops in India which are needed in the Europe, which are useful for the Europe also. So then what they have started? They have started in the 18th century trying to grow opium and indigo in India. Okay, and also the other crops. Other different cash crops also they started growing. Okay, now what is this? This you can see, students, beautiful blue colored prints are there. Okay, so these are the prints. These are the column. One is Kalamkari print and the another one is a Morris print. Okay, so this beautiful print is done on the cotton cloth in the 20th century in India and the 19th century in the England, the second one. Okay, now this was done with the help of indigo. Now what is indigo? A blue dye used in the common Morris prints in 19th century. Now the Britishers, they have now doing the cultivation of indigo in India, and then India became the supplier of indigo in the world during that time. And Morris print was one of the biggest source. Okay, India was considered as the biggest supplier of indigo throughout the world during that time. So all these prints were done with the help of indigo, and indigo was a blue dye color. Okay, so let us indigo, what kind of crop it was, indigo. And even opium. So Britishers, first of all, they have urged our Indian farmers to grow opium and indigo. This is opium plant. Now here you can see, okay, indigo plant is there. From indigo plant, what do we get? We get the blue colored dye, which is used to dye the cotton cloths into dark blue color. Okay, here you can see this is a powder blue colored dye we get from the indigo plant, which is used to dye the different cloths, different cotton cloths. Along with opium and indigo, the Britishers also forced and convinced our Indian farmers to grow other cash crops like jute in Bengal, okay, then tea in Assam, okay, then sugarcane in the United Provinces. United Provinces means Uttar Pradesh, large part of Uttar Pradesh. Then rice also again in Bengal, and then tea in Assam, and then wheat in Punjab, and cotton in Maharashtra. Okay, cotton in Maharashtra and rice in Madras and Bengal also. So this way, in different parts of India, the different cash crops were grown by the Indian farmers because of the force of Britishers. Okay, now we will see once again, students, why there was a great demand of indigo, okay, and why India was a suitable place for the growth of indigo. Now indigo crop is very unique crop, students, and it can be grown only in the tropical countries, okay, and our India is a tropical country. As you can see, the Tropic of Cancer passes from India. So the temperature, so the tropical parts of any country has to do a lot with the temperature and the climatic conditions. So the climatic conditions of our India is quite suitable for the growth of indigo. Indigo can be grown primarily in the tropical area, and by the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used by the cloth manufacturers in Italy, France and Britain to dye cloth. Okay, from the last decades of the 18th century, indigo cultivation in Bengal expanded rapidly in Bengal. And now the indigo cultivation and the indigo was dominating the world market. And here the Bengal became the center. Bengal became the center of the indigo cultivation. And everybody in all over the Europe and in the different parts of the world also, everybody wanted the indigo of Bengal only. Today we have a synthetic light colored indigo, students. Okay, today we are not growing the real indigo. Okay, as we were growing in the olden days. Now, why everybody wanted the indigo grown in India only? That is grown in tropical zone. We all know that Europe lies in the temperate zone. So, what kind of was the indigo plantation was not possible in a temperate zone? No. So, the people were growing the different type of plant, which was known as woad. So, the people of Europe, they were growing the woad plant. So, this woad plant was growing in northern Italy, southern France, Germany, Britain. Okay, and they were getting the violet. This woad was not giving as dark color as indigo was giving. This woad was giving violet, and it was quite pale and dull also. It was not as much bright and vibrant like indigo. So woad was we can say, the alternate substitute or an option of indigo, and it used to give a very dull color, unattractive color, as compared to indigo, which was very bright color. So the dyers in Britain, now they preferred only India's indigo. So this was the reason that the dyers of Britain, the dyers, okay, those who are giving the color to the cloth. So the dyers of the Britain and Europe, other European countries, they looked for only indigo of India, okay, because of the very extremely light blue color. Okay, now what happened then? But now those who were the manufacturers of the woad plant in Europe countries, in Britain, now what was their condition? Okay, they would lose their jobs. They were not at all profit because nobody was purchasing their woad dye. So now they are at the high risk of competition because of India's indigo. So now what they did, they all went to the British government in Europe, and they pressurized the government to ban the import of indigo. Okay, so now what happened? For a few years it was banned. India's indigo was banned. It was not supplying to other European countries. But again, what happened in 17th century? The ban on indigo was lifted, relaxed, and finally indigo was cultivated in throughout the world. Now French also cultivated indigo in the Saint Domingue in Caribbean islands, Portuguese cultivated in Brazil, English in Jamaica, and Spanish in Venezuela. Now indigo plantations required a huge farm with forced labor. Now it has started in North America in farms. Okay, now what happened? They all were forced labor. Yes, so indigo plantations were set up in different European countries, and this plantation required a huge amount of forced labor. Huge farmland also required, huge forced labor also required. Okay, and first of all it started in North America. Then in North America most were forced labor and they were brought from South Africa. Okay, when demand increased, the supply from West Indies and America collapsed due to various reasons for that, because production was going on with the help of African slaves. So in most of the countries, students, African slaves were employed forcibly. They were brought from through the ship routes, sea routes, and they were employed in the indigo plantation. And to work in indigo plantation was a very difficult job. It was not an easy to grow indigo. So now forced labor was done by the slaves of South Africa, those who were taken over there with the help of African slaves. And finally in the year 1783 and 1789, production reduced to half and people were looking for the new resources. And what was the situation in the year 1792? African slaves in plantation, they rebelled. Now African slaves, they all have rebelled, protested violently, and this way the slavery was abolished in France, and the French colonies, they led to the collapse in plantation. Plantation was no more taking place in France, and these African slaves, they were so much tortured by these French colonies that these African slaves, they have burned the plantations and they have killed the rich planters. And this way what happened? The indigo plantation, it collapsed in the Caribbean islands. And now what happened? Then we will see now Britishers, now they are not getting the indigo from North America, from France and from the other European countries. So finally they will turn to India, as we can see here. So this is the reason that why did the Britishers they turn to India? Because of the rebel of the African slaves. This also we have done. India is a tropical country. This also we have seen the woad plant. Okay. So finally students, now we are going to see Britishers, they have turned to India with the hope that here they can grow the indigo without any hindrances, without any disturbances. And therefore the Britishers, they found India a good ground for growing indigo. And from last decade of 18th century, indigo plantation started in Bengal. In 1788, we can see only 30% indigo was exported from India. But then it was increased drastically in the year 1810. Okay, and about 95% of indigo was exported from India to the European countries. What was the idea of the Britishers? To invest more in indigo plantation. Okay, so now how the indigo was grown in India, in Bengal. What were the different systems of growing the indigo? This we all are going to cover up in my next video, students. Okay, so till then, till here only. See you again in next video. Thank you so much. Have a good day.